I am Rachel. I am a second-generation homeschooler, and today on 7 and All, I am going to be talking about how to get started with independent work in your homeschool. How to make the transition from doing all your schoolwork with mom and dad to gradually doing more and more of your schoolwork independently. This is an important skill for our children to build, but how do we build it? First of all, I do want to preface this by saying I think a lot of parents have somewhat unrealistic ideas of when their child will be able to handle independent work. I think parents don't quite realize the level of executive functioning that it takes for independent work to be successful. Because you've heard from so many older homeschool parents, oh, your children will just work so well independently, and they'll be able to do so much, and they'll hardly even need you by the end. It's like, sure, maybe by the end, but it takes a long time to get there when you're first starting out. So there are some really big prerequisites that need to be in place before your children are really going to be able to do much independently in the homeschool. I'll talk about 3 big prerequisites to have in place first. Number 1, your child needs to be able to read fluently and with comprehension as well. During the early stages of reading, your child might be reading fairly fluently, but perhaps they're putting so much energy into decoding that they might not yet be at a level where they can read instructions and understand those instructions and understand how to apply those instructions and learn from them. So getting to that stage of reading fluently with comprehension and enough comprehension that they can apply what they understood and do an assignment based on what they read, it can actually take a couple years of being a reader to get to that point of reading with deep comprehension. That's something you need first before you'll really be able to do much with independent work. Second prerequisite is that your children really need to be past the stage where they're consistently writing letters and numbers backwards. It is totally normal for a 5-year-old or for a new writer to be randomly writing 3s or 5s or 7s or Bs or whatever it is backwards throughout the day. Sometimes they'll have it right and sometimes they won't have it right. Left and right just don't mean as much to young children. But when they're still having the issue of writing letters backwards, that is a time when you as a parent do want to be right next to them, so you can be watching them as they're doing their work, cueing them when you see them start to write a number backwards, cueing them to be, hey, where does that number start? Or which way does the number 3 look? Because you do not want the muscle memory and the visual memory being built of that letter or number being backwards. We can really head off a lot of problems with backwards letter and number writing by really staying on top of this issue, staying very close to our children when they're still writing their letters and numbers backwards. So I don't recommend starting independent work until they're fairly consistent with being able to write things in the correct direction. And the third prerequisite is the maturity to continue working even after you have walked away. And for different children, this will come at a different age. For some children, they'll be able to do it very early, and for other children, it's going to be quite a while before they can really handle the responsibility of continuing to work, even when you're not sitting right next to them. After you have those prerequisites out of the way, what I would suggest for beginning independent work is to get started with small things. There are some resources which are just more suited to independent work than others. Explode the Code is a longtime homeschool favorite for independent work because, 1, there's not a lot of words and there's not a lot of instructions on the page. So the child doesn't need to read a lot of instructions to understand what to do. And 2, it's also extremely predictable and consistent. They use the same page assignments repeatedly. They cycle through the same pages so your child knows what to do. They're not going to need a lot of explanation. Math, you see, tends to work well for independent work for the same reason. There's not a lot of words on the page and there's a lot of consistency. Other programs like The Good and the Beautiful, for one, are not going to work as well for independent work at a young age just because there can be a lot of words on a page, there's a lot of variety, it doesn't tend to stay as consistent. So when you're using resources that are less consistent and that have a lot of instructions, the parent is going to need to be hands-on and present and involved for those for a longer period of time. At first, when you're just getting started with building the skills of independent work, don't assign an independent work time to start off with. First, just explain a page to your child or have them talk over the page with you, and then walk away while they're working on it. Walk away to get yourself a drink of water or a drink of coffee or to check on the baby, and then come back after 3 to 5 minutes and see if they were able to handle that. That's a very good test if they can consistently handle you walking away after explaining a page and then you coming back and they've been able to do it and without a lot of issues. That's a good sign that we're getting closer to them being able to handle independent work on their own. Next, and this is very important, once your child is able to handle a small stack of independent work on their own, make sure that your child knows what to do when they don't know what to do with their schoolwork. Develop a process and develop the problem-solving skills. What do you want your child to do when they're faced with a page and they don't know how to do it? Should they come to you to get instructions? Should they ask a sibling? Should they set that book aside for you to do later? The solution is going to be a little bit different depending on your family dynamics and what's happening during independent work time, but the last thing you want your child to do is for them to attempt to complete the assignment, to complete the page, to complete the work on their own without really knowing what they're supposed to do, and for them to complete it all wrong. Because then there's not a lot of learning happening, they're just reinforcing misunderstandings. It's not good. So develop the routine and the problem-solving skills that your child will need, because there will be times when they open their book and they're like, actually, I don't understand these instructions. I don't understand what's being taught here. Help them to know what you want them to do in that situation. Now, gradually, as your child gets more and more experience with this, you will be able to expect your child to be able to handle more. Maybe they'll be able to handle reading their own science textbook to themselves and doing the comprehension questions. Maybe they'll be able to handle their own Sunlight reading books and literature. You never in homeschool get a free pass to stop checking on comprehension or stop checking on progress, stop checking on completion and on learning. Never. You are the parent, you are the homeschool teacher. You never get to be fully hands off. But as your child grows in maturity and in skill, you will be able to let go of the reins a little bit. Let them take charge. Let them manage their schedule as they grow in the skill and the maturity to be able to do that. You, homeschool parent, will always be needed in your homeschool. But as your child gets into middle and to high school, you probably will be bearing less and less of the teaching burden in the areas where your child is able to use the materials and resources you have to guide their own education. I hope that this was helpful and gave you an idea of what the process looks like in guiding your child to be able to work and learn independently. And if you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them down below in the comment section. And please give this video a thumbs up. It helps my channel a lot, and I will be back next time for more nerdy homeschool videos. I'll be seeing you. Bye!